This episode of the Swell Pod is brought to you in partnership with Kiln. Kiln provides flex office space for teams and individuals. Their all-inclusive set of amenities helps startups, creatives, and entrepreneurs alike get work done. Learn more about Kiln at kiln.co. What does it take to create something that never existed before? What does it take to challenge the status quo? What does it take to change the world? This is the Swell Podcast. We're passionate about the seed of an idea and how it swells into a movement. Take a journey with us as we seek the answers to those three questions through the stories of thought leaders, world builders, game changers, disruptors, and other pleasantly rebellious humans who've ventured out into the unknown on a personal journey to do something novel, innovative, creative, or disruptive. So, Spencer, who do we have today?
Yeah, in today's episode, we chat with Ron Ross and Brett Barlow. Ron is the co-founder and president and chief operating officer of Everee, also a board member and a former CFO. Now, Brett Barlow is the CEO currently of Everee, and previously he's been on the leadership teams of Pluralsight and Skullcandy, helping them both go to IPO. So in this session, we dive into their current mission of Everee to solve the problem of getting workers their pay faster, more frequently. Who wouldn't want that? So in this session, he actually shares a personal story from his daughter leaving home and going to full-time education. Some of the problems that she faced with paying bills and also being paid quicker or slower in this case. So we find out about that in the session. It's going to be a good session.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope you guys enjoy the story of Everee and these people who made this idea something real. So enjoy.
Good?
Yeah.
So this is the first time we've actually had two guests.
Okay.
And so it's going to be even better. And we didn't want to do this without both of you here. So thanks for coming to the Swell Podcast at Kiln.
Our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
So first of all, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, both
Sure.
of you, and
Sure.
and maybe just intro into what Everee is and why it was formed.
Yeah. Why don't I'll talk about myself and you can lead into the Everee because we're here because of Ron. I gotta, praise him on that side. Born and raised in Utah. I was raised on the mean streets of Farmington, where, Lagoon and Cherry Hill up in the north. And went to the University of Utah, got married, been married for 25 years, pretty active lifestyle and 3 kids. And I've done a tour of duty in Utah startups that I never thought I would end up working in Utah County as much as I did, being from up north or in Salt Lake area. But I've met a lot of great people. I've been at Ancestry.com, Omniture before Adobe, LogoWorks, which we sold to Hewlett Packard. And so professionally, spent a lot of time in the startup kind of disruption world, which just fascinates me and I love it. And then by some miracle, I ended up at Skullcandy. And that's where I met Ron, and we became fast friends. There were some challenging times that we had. There's some exhilarating, wonderful times, but also going public and at one point being the most shorted stock on NASDAQ. That's some pressure, and you start to, you find out who your friends are in tough moments in the trenches. Jeremy Andrus was leading us through that, and we just we formed a really good friendship there and realized the type of people you want to be around. So just professionally from there, I went to Pluralsight, where I was the chief marketing officer and then the chief brand officer, and kind of was on the leadership team there through that IPO. And, that was exhausting. There was a couple runs there that were exhausting, so I took some time off. And
I didn't let him.
Yeah.
Last very long.
Ron started blowing up my phone.
Retired. Yeah, and I was like, no, you're not going to be retired. You'll be bored in a week.
You got too much left in the tank, Barlow. Get up. Get over here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as Cliff Notes, that's just, I guess, a synopsis of my story. But I'll hand the Everee part over to Ron because all this is his idea, and I think it's awesome.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just give a bit of background. So I'm from Utah too. Went to the University of Utah. Then I spent just short of 5 years back east. So I did a master's program at Boston University and then an MBA at Bentley College in Massachusetts. And then we moved our family back here, and I did a short stint in public accounting, and I lasted about 3 years, and I always say that was about 2.5 years too long. I knew right away it wasn't my love. There's some great people there, and it works for some people. It just wasn't for me. And so I jumped into my first startup as a controller, and that lasted about a year, and then I ended up at Skullcandy where I met Brett, and I was about 4.5, 5 years there.
We got a good run.
It was a good run. I think we were. You joined, I think, a month before I did.
Yep.
And when we joined, there were maybe 30 employees somewhere in there. And when we left, somewhere around 300.
300 taking it public.
Yeah. So a lot of experiences in those 4 years that, like Brett said, you're in the trenches and you see good and bad. And Brett and I, of course, just developed a good relationship and kept that relationship after. So after Skullcandy, I was in three other companies as CFO, and actually 2 other companies, and then this would be my third. And as a CFO, I'd used a bunch of payroll software. I'd used ADP and Paychecks, Paylocity, Zenefits, Gusto. So payroll was like something I was very used to and accustomed to. And it was...
how bad it was.
The good and the bad
Yeah.
in that world, yeah, for sure. And it was in 2017, so I was a CFO at a company called Team. And my daughter, Eliza, at that time, she left home to go to college, and she was going down to UVU and living off campus with some friends, and she had a job, and she was making enough to pay her bills, and I had kind of spent time with her to make sure she was, going to be okay. But she kept coming to me month after month in need of these short-term loans, and what was basically happening was her rent was coming due, and she had worked, but she just hadn't been paid for that work, and so she just needed a loan to cover her for a few days, which is basically a payday loan. I stepped in to help her during those times, but it happened enough where I began thinking about her experience and payroll as a process. Did the 2-week payroll cycle really work for people? And the more I spent thinking about it, it's not a very good process, and it puts people that are living paycheck to paycheck in this really difficult situation where, if emergency comes up or if a bill comes due and they had worked but they just didn't have the pay, from that effort, what do they do? And oftentimes people they either rack up money on a credit card, or they go to a friend or a family member, or they go, worst cases, they go to a payday lending institution, and that puts them in a vicious cycle of debt that's hard to get out of. And so as a CFO, I was like, that's a interesting problem. It's a big market, and could you do something different besides what traditionally had been done in payroll? And so the light bulb went off, and started thinking more and more about that problem, and found a way to solve it. And that became Everee.
And then, so light bulb went off, and you called Brett.
He was one of the first people I called.
Yeah.
But it was probably, that happened in the summer of 2017 when my daughter left home for college. And I mulled on that and analyzed it for, a good 6-7 months.
Really?
And I didn't really say anything to anybody. I'm not what you would call a typical entrepreneur. Like some entrepreneurs, you just know that person's an entrepreneur. They walk in the room and they're like this magnetic personality and, big and loud, and they're going to command the room. That's not me. Like I'm a, finance person, accounting person, I'm not a big personality. So thinking about launching a business and being an entrepreneur, that was scary. That was, it's a scary thing. So no, I didn't really talk about it for months and months. I just posted on LinkedIn today, actually. So I didn't even tell my wife that I was thinking about it. She knew that I was analyzing something and that there was a problem that I wanted to solve and potentially launch a business.
She was probably relieved the secret you were keeping was a business that you were starting and not something a little more nefarious.
What are you thinking about downstairs? What are you doing? She knew I was thinking about solving this problem, but I didn't tell her. I just wasn't comfortable enough at that point to tell her. And then we were in Hawaii. We were on a trip with some friends. It was a surf trip. And by the way, I'm not a good surfer. I want to be, but I'm just not a good surfer. So we were on the beach, and she said, "Are you going to tell me about this thing that you're thinking about, this problem you're wanting to solve?" And so it was just a moment where I said, "Okay, I'll pitch it to you." And it was encouraging, I would say. So anyways, I started just more and more just opening up, and we went out to breakfast, I think.
Yeah. It was just a pretty standard Draper quick serve restaurant, and you laid it out on a napkin for me.
And that probably, timeline-wise, was probably in March, I would say.
Yeah.
March, April.
Yeah, there was something about that conversation. I wasn't in a place to really engage full time in something, but seeing his passion, knowing what he's about, and that he wouldn't really go in deep unless he felt really strongly and had something there. But the light bulbs just started to go off for me in this lunch. But this is, for me, pre-IPO of Pluralsight. I wasn't really going to be leaving to go anywhere,
Sure.
but yeah, let me help. So I joined the board pretty soon after that.
Yeah.
It's kind of consultant, help out, not consultant really, just friend helping out.
Yeah. And it's smart. It started off small. It took me a while to kind of extract me and say, okay, I'm going to do this. It took me a while to get there. But eventually I had actually built this whole model of payroll in Excel. You can think about that. And so I was I had built the whole thing in my own way. And I had a brother he ran a dental office. He's a dentist. And so there's a few people I said, hey, will you let me process payroll for you? And they didn't really know it wasn't a product yet, but I could do it. And so I started processing payroll for a few companies. And then I started talking with people like Brett. He was one of the first people I talked with. And there were some people that I had worked with in the past, Tyler Pluger being one of them, Kyle Jacobson, Derek Newbold, Piers Mainwaring. These are what I would consider our founding group, people that were early that I went to and said, hey, this is a problem I'm interested in solving. Can you, are you interested and how can you help me tackle this problem? And so eventually I turned what I had built over to them, and they took what I had built and productized it. And
launched in August of 19.
Yeah, officially.
Yeah.
Officially
with the product out there.
And by then we had, I don't know, maybe 10 companies that we were working with and paying their employees on an accelerated basis, even up to every day, which is just not something that's done.
I think when most people hear about payroll, they have PTSD. If you've ever had to run it, it's oh man, I don't want to. That's hard. Yeah. That's, it's painful, and it's kind of just in some ways boring. If you have electricity, your light should just turn on. Payroll should just run. People don't really think about it. So in that sense, it could be considered maybe not exciting. But if you take the other side of it, it is so perfect for disruption. It's been done the same way for
decades.
forever. And really, when you're talking about people's personal finances and the ups and downs and the life-changing elements that come with working and being compensated for that work, there's something actually pretty life-changing about it. And that's one of the things that really got me excited about it was, oh, this is something completely different. Like at Skullcandy, we didn't invent headphones, but we did it different than anybody else was doing it. Pluralsight didn't invent training per se, but took a completely different approach. There's an addressable market and a need where you can go out and do something really different, and it's just a big opportunity to help people. Really, I mean, getting into it's about paying people fast. It's about compensating people for the work that they've done. Like, why would a payroll company make money off of your sweat equity by holding on to that? You should have that. You should have it in your pocket. And some of the larger payroll companies, how a process works is your payday's on the 15th. You have to process it on the 10th or something like that. Traditional payroll holds onto your dollars for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and they're making money off of that float. So what's their incentive to change? Nothing. We've flipped that on its head. Ron's, his concept and what he thought about is actually, it's genius. It's mobile, it's flexible, and we have the ability to get people paid same day for the days for the wages that they've earned. Yeah. It's incredible what it does.
That's one of the unique parts about it where, as a CFO, I knew that there would be some businesses that would want to accelerate the ability for their employees to get paid faster, but that, their cash flow and the way their business operated wouldn't accommodate, speeding up those payments. And so the way that we tackled it was for those kind of businesses, there's an ability for them to make those payments to their employees, but do it in a way where they're leveraging a credit facility that we have with our banking partner. So it's basically credit supported. And so we push the payments out to their employees during an open pay period, and then we settle up at the end of the pay period and close all those out. So the employees of these companies, they get the benefit of getting their pay just really fast, and the business doesn't have to change or disrupt their cash flow cycle, and it's just a perfect type of approach to it.
Yeah. I love the fact that, just going back to when you were talking about your daughter, and it's just something that you were inspired to do, really, ultimately. You just couldn't let this go.
Yeah.
You could have tried to do that, but you felt like you had to do it, right? And and a friend also saw that sincerity and the inspiration behind it and wanted to be a part of it. And I'm impressed that. So I guess the USP is that it sounds like it's a really great platform. Maybe you can talk about that later on, but that's going to be easy for everyone to use, not just the actual employer, but the actual employee gets something much sooner. And they can choose, right? They can choose daily, weekly, and maybe a combination.
Or on demand. They've built up some earnings and want to tap into it, sure.
If you've created a Lyft account, you could sign up for Everee. It's mobile first. It's just what you would expect. It's very simple, and you're right. It's flexibility and choice is what we're offering.
Yeah, and you're disrupting an employee experience, though. That's what interesting.
It's funny you say that because our mission is to humanize the exchange of value between employers and employees.
Right.
There's a fundamental mismatch where companies will inherently do what's best for them, but what we're helping to change is what's best for them is really what's best for the employees that are providing all of that equity and value to them.
Yeah.
Just to add on a little bit of Ron, I think if you would look at us, we've tried to do things right in a sense in a career like what you'd expect, like, okay, go to college, get a job, like do all those things that you hear traditional people doing. Well, I did that. I had, I've been married, my wife and I were both working, and we had children, and we're living paycheck to paycheck. It's a really lonely feeling to feel like you're, quotation marks, highly educated, capable of work and working in a white collar, corporate gig, and considering that a payday loan might be the viable option to get you through to Friday because, your carburetor broke. You just can't make that bridge work. And why is that? There's this, it's not like Mariah and I were doing something out of bounds or irresponsible. We just, couldn't quite make ends meet. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not just a problem for maybe low wage earners. There is a fundamental mismatch in the way people are paid and compensated for the work that they've done.
Yeah, and what you see historically is, so because of the inefficiencies that exist in payroll, there have been, I would say, big kind of tectonic things that have happened that have tried to tackle that, payday lending being one of them. And they're tackling that in a way that's detrimental to the worker. So payday lending, they're just tackling that mismatch in timing and then getting these workers in this cycle of debt. And there's also overdraft fees, so people that expect to be paid at a certain time, or they have a bill and they kind of push that out, trying to time that appropriately, and they get dinged with an overdraft fee. These are $1 billion issues, just big issues that shouldn't really exist if you gave the employee their pay in real time. And it's the way I think payroll really should work. But it just ended up in a place because of, if you go back in time, software just really wasn't capable of handling, a more accelerated cycle. The banking world wasn't really in a place where you can move money around freer, quicker, and that doesn't exist right now. Same day ACH, you can move money between bank accounts, and it all happens in the same day. And software can accommodate that flexibility and allowing for employers to pay their employees faster. It just so happens that big payroll companies, they originated back in time when those things didn't exist and kind of got stuck doing things that way, and that just became the norm.
That's great.
And we represent something that's different.
That's wonderful. I wonder whether your daughter has shares in the company now that she inspired the whole thing. And but and how often do you pay your kids? Your whatever you call it, your money.
If they've earned it, we'll pay them quick.
Allowances. Is it like real time now? Sorry,
they have to earn it, but sure.
Well, so it's interesting because I love that you had this really, this fascinating problem that you really latched onto.
Sure.
And that pushed you out into this area that you weren't sure that you were whether it was personality wise or whatever, right? You just felt like that wasn't, in the past, you didn't see that necessarily being what you saw yourself as, and that motivated you to push into that. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective then, to jump into this as well, what was it that really motivated you to go and to do this and go ultimately disrupt the value system, right, between employer and employee? Was it his story and his vision, or that personal connection that he had to it, or was there something else?
Actually, before you jump in there, so I invited Brett early on to be a board member. So he came on as a board and was providing value that way, because I knew operations and finance and that part of the business. That was kind of my world. Sales and marketing, just not my jam, not something that I really know very well. But this guy, of course, that's his expertise. And so being a friend, I was like, he was one of the first people I went to that said, hey, I need some guidance, some help. Come help me.
You guys are probably familiar with the brand Ruka. They have a tagline, the balance of opposites. I'm a big believer in that, in contrast and the value you get from different ideas and different thinking. If on paper, we're totally opposite. Extrovert, introvert, operations, finance, sales, and marketing. But I think morally, ethically, aspirationally, the things that we value in our lives, we're very connected on that. So that makes a really easy partnership between the two of us. And for fun conversations, because one topic, we're literally coming at it from different sides, but we end up orbiting the same place. And I love working with him. I think we really balance each other out.
We both had experiences at times where that didn't, you're in a business and it doesn't mesh and things don't work out as well. And so building this company, I wanted to make sure, hey, I'm planning on, building this and being involved in this and solving this problem for years to come. And I want to involve people that I enjoy, being in
It's
the
supposed to
trenches
be
with, so
fun, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
it's supposed to be fun.
I can't tell you how important that is to actually be around, surrounded with people that you enjoy working with.
I think most people, they either have it written down or it's in their head, have a list of the top 10 things that are important for them in a career or life or work-life balance. And as I thought about this opportunity, this just checked all the boxes. Can I influence the culture or have a strong influence in the culture? I have I'd say this a lot, but a strict no a-hole policy. Can we, is this a place where that can be the case? We can bring that to life, and he values that. We value people. Are we disrupting a business or an industry? I don't want to just be doing the same thing. I want challenges. And it's fun to have kind of a David and Goliath thing. Like there's a mountain to climb or there's a Goliath to take down. And that's fun. I like that challenge. And so that's exciting for me. I think when you look at businesses, one of an indicator for success is if a leadership group has worked together in the past. And we've done that. Ron and I, other people that we've brought into the business, either he has or I have or we have collectively, there's the type of people that that have, you don't want to have everybody the same. I really do value like the diversity of thought and background and all of those things that come with it, but a similarity of experience of knowing, oh, okay, when the chips are down, I know how you act. When things are hard, I know how you react. And building it from scratch, there's that pressure that comes with it. If we blow it, we blew it, but also we have the opportunity to build it up in a way that's, the way that we have always wished that we had in businesses. I think we've experienced highs and lows, good managers, bad managers, good business strategy, bad business strategy, and it's fun to come in. You're asking like, well, why do this? There's all of those things that added up to, man, this is 10 out of 10. Why not?
Yeah.
It's just an exciting proposition for me.
Yeah.
So,
And I would say that extends to our executive team and to the employees that we have working with us. I mean, we have a really great culture that works, and it's a healthy one too, where we can tackle really hard issues and problems and not have it be anger or things that are unhealthy that happen as a result of that. So that even extends to our board members and our investors. Seems like we've surrounded the business all around with just really great people.
Yeah, and I love that you even meant, like, both of you just mentioned culture. I think that's really interesting, and the fact that you had this ability to build this culture into something that I think represented what you guys both value so much.
Sure.
And hearing things like this David and Goliath story, that alone, I think that amount of conflict that you're going to face, I think, through that journey is an interesting experience to share with an entire company, and I'm sure that's really inspirational and aspirational, and I love that. So what are some of the other things, like no a-holes and the David and Goliath?
that should just be life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that principle. Yeah. What else do you guys feel like you're trying to shape your culture into in a way that you can go on this David and Goliath journey?
I like to think that Ron and I are people that lead from the middle, which isn't maybe typically you would hear. There's people that sit in front of the battle and, let's charge, and behind, like, okay, go get them. We're in the trenches. We're in the middle of it, and we're not afraid to make the hard calls, but we are building this together, and I hope that it's always like that. I think there's when you scale and you get larger, naturally senior leaders get a little more and more detached from the business, and I'm hoping that we always preserve that grassroots element of the business. Everybody feels that there's no job too big or small. If people still faxed, I would fax. I'm not afraid to sweep the floor or whatever. Like, just do what it takes to get it done. Yeah. And then when you win and you know that you've been doing that with, had that attitude with people, it's super rewarding. It's exciting.
And we have, be direct but nice. But
Think
kind.
big.
Sorry, kind.
Yeah.
Be direct but kind. Think big but
Be effective.
effective.
We want big picture, but you have to execute too, right? You want to be direct. I think in Utah, there's a pervasive passive aggressive nature that is here. Like people are really, really nice and sometimes nice to a fault. So they're agreeing in a difficult conversation. And then when they leave the room, it's like, yeah, I didn't really like how that went down. I don't quite agree with the decision. And then that just breeds unhealthiness throughout the organization. So we've made a commitment to each other. We're going to debate things. We're going to figure things out. But once a decision is made, that's the decision. And we're going to rally around that, and we're going to get it done. And in times where that doesn't happen, we nip that in the bud. Like, we just can't do that.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
I'm interested. You got another
Yeah,
one?
go for it.
Well, I'm interested to know maybe if there's anything that comes to your mind around the David and Goliath thing. Like, why is that so important to you? Not just about this problem,
yeah.
but like in the past, growing up, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Is there anything that comes to your mind there? And I'm also interested to know what you're learning as CEO. And I know you're president and you're CEO. What are you learning?
I'm learning it's okay to not know everything. Not just learning. I've known that for a while. I think you have to get comfortable with the fact. Well, let me start it over. I think just like anybody in the world, I have some level of imposter syndrome, just like anybody does. Like, am I the right person for this? Are we the right team for this? Is that, do people believe in us? What if we fail? What do other people think or perceive? And are we really that group? Well, that motivates me too, because then I'm having this internal conversation like, heck yes, I am. Like, yes, we can do that. And you are too, and you are too, and we can do it. So there's a motivation that I think is, it's good to strive for something that might be, I guess, unattainable. That's why we think big, go after big, audacious things. And having that David and Goliath, well, nobody thought that David would win against Goliath. And there's not to bring theology into it. It's just like, if people are betting against us, we're pretty stubborn people. Both of us are
Competitive.
and we want to win. We want to win. And there's multiple ways that can happen. And there's reasons why. It's sure there's financial things, but it's also just like doing good in the world. I believe that this company is actually doing good, for profit, for good, and that feels good to me. When you're seeing people's faces light up and there's an emotional connection because their personal lives have fundamentally been changed because we have unlocked dollars that they can go towards buying books, paying for a babysitter. I mean, just little things. There's this emotional connection that I think gets created with a brand, really, that we're trying to build. Nobody's ever put an ADP sticker on the back of their car.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Everee changes that. And
Well, not that they'll put an ADP sticker, but it'd be
every sticker, yeah.
There you go.
And that there's well said. I didn't say that right, but yeah, I hope that we build a business that employees and people that we serve have a connection to it and feel that we value them, and hopefully we make their lives just a little bit better.
Yeah, and if your motivation is just pure, if it's all about money, then the connection to the business and your desire to continue with it, I would imagine over time diminish and maybe become difficult. But solving this problem and actually benefiting the lives of others, it kind of gets you through those ebbs and flows of building a business, because there are those ebbs and flows, right?
So yeah, having a real human
Ups and downs, yeah. Right.
a real human problem to solve is going to last forever, I guess. And
Right.
Yeah.
I'm still curious to know if there's an early David and Goliath story from your younger years.
Oh, yeah.
Can you think of one?
Well, I can think of a lot. Look, skinny, braces, buck teeth, glasses.
Mullet.
Mullet came later, but
I had one of
12-year-old,
those too. So we share that.
12-year-old, 13-year-old Brett getting picked on and beat up. Really, walking home from school, growing up, wasn't an everyday thing, but I definitely know what it feels like to be singled out and picked on in a way. And thank you so much for bringing up that topic. It's great to dredge that up.
Let's dive deep.
It's like dive deep. Let's get into it. But there's those moments of like, man, for nothing really that I did, just how I looked, getting pounded on, that doesn't, feel good. I did have a mullet, but when I had the mullet, it was cool. So that was okay.
So you're emerging out of that awkward stage.
Awkward stage.
Right.
There were a couple moments I remember from my early childhood when some of those kind of bullying things were taking place, and I had a group of friends that saddled up next to me and probably just got beat up with me, but were my friends no matter what happened. And I think throughout my life, I've really appreciated loyalty and just being kind to people. And so there's the David and Goliath of like a larger group picking on, smaller groups or whatever, where it just cuts me wrong. And I don't like things that I perceive to be unfair in personal life or professional life. And this particular problem that we're solving seems inherently unfair that people are treated, or compensated in a way that they are. And so, yeah, there's
thanks for
that.
sharing that. I mean, it is your part of your.
Not sure if that's what you were looking for. It came from. I went a little bit.
It just matches what you're trying to do inside the company. You mentioned one of the values, right? Being kind or something like that.
Direct but kind.
But yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm interested. I don't know where you want to go next, but I am interested in how you stay close to that human problem. When you're thinking of whether it's the customer interviews, we had Nate, by the way, Nate Walkinshaw on Series 1, but you'll know all about how important it is to keep close to the customer and really understand who they are. In fact, ones that you don't even know about. Maybe it's underrepresented groups, or how do they? I'm just interested to know what you do around that and what you're learning about it. I don't know if you wanted to go down that avenue.
Oh yeah, it sounds great. Let's do it.
Having empathy takes work. And it's hard. An easier path in life is just worrying about maybe yourself. It's maybe a faster track for things. But having empathy in your personal and professional life is so rewarding, because when you start to understand the view from somebody else's seat, it opens up your eyes to things and changes your thinking. And I think that we have that perspective with Everee. There's a very strong empathetic, are the decisions we're making, how are they impacting employees, or the products and features that we're releasing, or the way that we're selling the product, are we saying it in a way that resonates? Are we building things that actually really do help? And if you can keep that perspective and try to think about things from other people's point of view, always, I don't know that bad can come out of that. And so you're asking, how do you keep that? Well, I think you need to have empathy just when you're leading and running a business. I think it's really important.
Yeah, if I could just touch on that, maybe just in a different way, but when you think of who we sell to, our buyer should be like a HR person or controller or CFO or owner operator, anybody that does payroll. They might not know that their employees are using payday lending or having those dealing with those issues. And so, like, if the more that would become exposed to them, if they're empathetic to their people, it almost becomes like a no-brainer. Like the cost isn't higher. The experience of actually using Everee compared to like a traditional payroll app or software, it's actually way easier. And so we're still in the early signs of the like adoption curve, I would say, because it's very new, and what we do is like a new way to do things. But I think if speaking to those payroll administrators out there, if they if there was understanding to about their employees, it would become like an easy decision. Like, oh yeah, I can see how that my employees potentially could be being impacted by that, and why not do something that benefits them?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that allowing your employees to have a choice to alleviate some of those things that maybe they don't understand, that maybe some of their employees are you taking out payday loans and things like that. I'm interested to know, so if you're in the earlier stage of the adoption curve, like what are some of the pain points? Like what are some of the things that are actually making it really difficult for you right now?
Well,
difficult for us or difficult for the people we're selling to, or both?
I'd be interested in both. I'm really interested in from your guys' perspective. Yeah, like
so. Yeah. I'm going to tackle the like what we're seeing as far as the problem that businesses are coming to us for, and then maybe we can tackle the second part of that. But we're seeing that companies that have a higher percentage of hourly workers or low wage earners, where this is like a meaningful benefit to them, they're coming to us in a big way. And oftentimes those kind of business inherent with having hourly workers or low wage workers, there's oftentimes retention problems and recruiting retention challenges. It's just part of that. And so we find that companies that are coming to us, they're able to attract talent a lot better. And when those employees come in, they tend to stick. So if you're an employee and you're getting paid every day, you might think twice leaving that company to go for somebody, and then you're back to that same 2-3 week pay cycle. So you want to touch on like what type of companies that we see?
Yeah, so slight sales pitch here, but we're a full featured payroll platform. We provide all of the things that you would expect from payroll, plus the speed to pay. We also have a payments side that really is geared towards this gig economy.
Yep.
I mean, you see all of these businesses out there, especially, we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and you see the DoorDashes and Grubhubs of the world, but there are thousands of other businesses that are in the gig marketplace arena where they're contractors and they just want to be paid for the delivery that they've made or for the dog that they've walked or even home health care or cosmetics or last mile delivery. And we are positioned perfectly for that. So we can pay these people the same day that they've worked. And when there's this up and down in the economy is up and to the right now and recovering, but look, there's some challenges that are out there, and we feel like we're really helping. And we're providing these benefits out there where some of these companies were maybe just Venmoing contractors. Well, what do you do at the end of the year when you have 1099s and all of these taxes? Like, that feels really heavy and intimidating. We take care of all of that. So we help the little guy compete with the big guy. And they're not even really little companies we're working with as far as the scope of the contractors that they work with. It's thousands and tens of thousands of contractors. So we're really well positioned, I think, for where the economy and I think what we're doing will be the expectation and the norm in the very near future. I know we're a bit ahead of the curve. And when people hear what we do, it's like, that's ridiculous, or that's hard, or how would you actually do that? But when you really get into it, we've made it so simple. It's really easy.
It's one of those things that, like, you can imagine it does become the standard, and then like a couple of years after that, people are like, how is it not that it was always like this?
Yeah.
It just seems so simple.
Well, you were talking about one of the challenges that we face, right? That's one of them, overcoming people's understanding of how things work. And can you really do that? And this feels hard, and that's scary. So that's absolutely something that we have to do. We have to earn people's trust, and we have to do what we say we're going to do and make their lives better. The administrator who's doing it, or the CFO, but as well as the employee. So that's certainly something that is a challenge for us.
Yeah, and I would say, like, I always use the examples of, getting a video rental. Like, we've probably all experienced way back in the day, like Blockbuster, or even before that, like going to the grocery store, and you're lucky if you get
We've rented the VHS player, actually.
The movie you want to watch. And it's just a bad model. It's inefficient. Yeah. And that, of course, was replaced by, I think the next stage in that was maybe Redbox. It made it a little bit more easy to deal with. And then beyond that, now it's just like, log onto your computer, your TV, and start streaming. So that's ultimately the more frictionless experience and best experience. And I would give that same kind of analogy with what we're building. Like if you go back in time, it's, old and clunky, and we've just built something that's just super easy to use and really fast. Or there's a bunch of analogies there, like
give us another one.
The maps.
Give us
Maps
another
app.
one.
So I've used the fold out paper map and navigating to that location. It's terrible, right? Now you just type in an address and it just takes you there. And that's sort of what we've built.
Yeah.
Or voice instead of typing, right?
What was that?
Yeah, just say where you want to go.
Just say where you want to
go.
Yeah.
Even easier. I'm interested. So the actual, the biggest benefit of being paid quickly. So I never really thought about that, but you've got basically millions of people, probably, I don't know, 78% or 86%. I can't remember what people. Yeah.
Almost 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
Pre-pandemic.
That's about 100 million people.
So let me throw this out just so I understand, and maybe it's other things you're going to offer in the future as well. But so those individuals, it really impacts them. It positively impacts them.
Sure.
If they choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can choose the payment.
Let me just add,
Yeah.
over 30% of people that make over $100,000 a year also live paycheck to paycheck. Right. So it's not necessarily who you would automatically go to. There's a problem in our working society with this. So sorry.
Yeah, and so this is going to solve So there's a few things in the mix, right? This is one of the big problems that they're solving. Another one is better budgeting or other things. They might not. This is going to help massively. Where does that come into kind of your? Even going back to the interviews, which you probably do hundreds of interviews or will be, with your customers.
Not yet, but after the Swell podcast, it's going to be crazy. The demand.
Maybe. But what other things are maybe in the pipeline to help those individuals? I don't know how this would even fit into your model, but there is.
I know where you're going. Well, first of all, there's probably 5% of people that earn a wage that no matter what you do for them, they're going to mismanage their money, and there is no silver bullet, and people live beyond their means. So it's not save all, but there's an element of I would say control that we're giving back to people on how they can manage. Think into the future, investing, budgeting. We are the source of the income, and so the information or just trends that we see will just help us build and provide tools that are, again, to the empathy and talking to the customers of what they're looking for and how that's informing our product development process. So without just saying we're absolutely going this direction, we want to be flexible, we want to be fast, and whatever it is that we're seeing could benefit our customers, we're open for it.
Yeah, I love that.
It was interesting. We were having a discussion about this before the podcast, Spencer and I was like, man, when I was younger, if I could have gotten paid every day, I'm not sure I would have been responsible enough to do the right thing with my money. And the interesting point that Spencer made to me was, well, what's interesting is, so the more you get paid every day, the more you're thinking about it, like you're essentially building this habit. So eventually, as opposed to thinking about it twice a month or every 2 weeks,
Sure.
right? You're having to think about it, and you're having to build that habit to make the right decisions on a daily basis.
Yeah.
With what are you doing with that money that you just got paid?
Well, you know what it does is it gives a time-stamped value to your effort.
Right.
So if you're considering whether to get that Samsung, whatever television or pair of shoes, and you think to yourself, okay, do I want that as much as Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday? Or all of last week or the last 2 weeks? It puts it into if you have cash in your wallet and you see dollars going out, or you're just swiping a credit card because nobody sees that and it's out there. So there's a value to your effort that workers gain with the services and the features that we provide for sure. It's a different value and it's a different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And you get the whole benefit of the time value of money too. So if you do, want to invest or do anything quicker with your money, you have that benefit.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're getting paid much later, you're just
somebody's earning the interest off it, right?
Exactly.
It's either you or the payroll company.
Right.
So I would think that most people would prefer that it be them because they work for it.
Even to just have the choice and being I love that you guys used on demand as well. Like that's very intriguing.
Yeah, some people select just, hey, I just want it on the biweekly, like I already have it, but knowing that there's a button in our app that says pay me for the days that I've worked, and it's there the same day. I mean, who else does that?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
So we have some pretty unique features that we built. So this is Ron's brainchild, but there's the manager verification idea of a verification of the hours that are worked. So you as a manager just get a text message at the end of the day. Do you approve this? It swipes left and payroll's gone. So you process payroll for our whole company every day.
Yep.
90 seconds, a minute. What does it
not
take?
even that. It's a few
all of our
seconds a day.
All of our
really
employees
easy.
have choice.
Yeah,
Majority choose daily. Some don't, but you process it daily.
Yeah, and I probably should delve just a little bit here to provide some, explanation for that. So really, when you think about the process of payroll and accelerating that, the complexity really happens when with hourly workers because they have to clock in, clock out, and you have to track their time. That time needs to be looked at or verified, and then the administrator needs to approve and move that through. And so we've built it so in a really quick way, like Brett mentioned, managers that are closer to those workers and knowing what their time actually is, we've built it so there's just a really easy way for them to stay on top of and view, edit, approve, verify those hours, so that when the administrator gets it to process the payroll, they just know it's done. It's good to go. And traditional payroll, it's really inefficient because basically those time punches accumulate for 2.5 weeks, and when it comes time to processing that, the burden falls on the administrator, and they're apart from where that work is actually happening, so they have to think back. 2 weeks ago, did that person work 8 hours or was it 7.5 hours? I don't know. There's a lot of time fraud that happens. It's inaccurate, and it's a mess. So if you think about the process of you doing your dishes, if you're going to wait to do your dishes until after 2 weeks, you got a project on your hand. It's a problem.
And it's
right?
messy.
It's going to take you a lot longer, and it's going to be messy. We've built it so that they can stay on top of that stuff just really easy, real time. So it just makes it just the whole thought of processing payroll. It's we have customers that said it used to take them days to get through that, and we're talking seconds to a minute a day. It's just that easy.
It's amazing.
So you're getting efficiencies, and your actual administrators, their NPS score or their satisfaction levels are going up, right? And the actual employee.
Yeah, we've been told that there's around a 30% increase in retention from some of our customers. It's also forcing conversations, to what Ron was alluding to, because if you get detached from the business and you're only talking at the end of 2 weeks, okay, that's not great. But if you're talking possibly every day, because you're expecting your pay, why didn't you get paid? It's forcing conversations in a more frequent manner, which alleviates time fraud, what you're saying, but it also creates more communication opportunities for employer employees.
And we've seen it's very interesting, the behavior change that happens in a business when they launch that, because it takes maybe a day or two, and those time punches for those employees, they get really accurate really quick, because they're
right. So the behavior's changed.
Yeah.
They're getting paid every day, and so they want their time punches to be accurate to make sure that happens really quick, and so it's just a good efficiency boon to the business when they deploy us. Whereas if old school, they might not be front of mind if they have an error in their time punches. That might just sit, and they might not fix it for, immediately, and it might just sit and, never get resolved. And there's, you have time fraud or bigger issues, and we've tackled that and fixed it.
That's the kind of payroll stuff that may not sound sexy to the normal person, but if you're having to deal with those problems, it's a huge improvement.
Well, I think you were talking about efficiency, and what's really intriguing me, I think, right now is this idea that, what you guys are doing, like if one day you're getting paid every 2 weeks, one day you're getting paid that same day, and it's just that same day at that point, and it affects efficiencies. But I'm also wondering, when you think about their cultures and those organization cultures, it's such a shift, in terms of my value and getting paid for my value. I'm wondering if there's anything else culturally within these other companies that start using Everee that they are noticing, beyond efficiency, maybe even, finding more, purpose and value and meaning in their work, right? And a connection to the business itself.
You look down Silicon Slopes here, and we're in this beautiful kiln space. There's a recruiting element of come work for us. We have a shuffleboard table, we have a candy wall, we have a gym membership, haircuts, whatever people do. Well, you're in the midst of a pandemic, people are moving virtual. What do those kind of ancillary benefits they don't really matter as much, or they're coming into question as to their value?
Yeah.
There's one thing that doesn't change, and offering Everee or a solution like ours to your employee base, that means you care and you are shifting your thinking to something that impacts my life when I might be having a really hard time. Because we don't know what's going on in people's lives. I think that's really surfaced over this last year is, we get stuck at home and we're in this pandemic, and, some people are hurting. It's a hard time. So when an employer shifts the way that you're being compensated in a recognition that I may not know everything that's going on in your life, but I recognize that it might be challenging for you right now. I'm just going to provide you more choice because I appreciate the value that you bring to the business. Yeah. That increases loyalty. That makes you feel like you matter. Mm-hmm. And, don't we all want that? And that you're doing something that people value and that you're providing some worth in the world?
Yeah. Well, I know, and I think that's amazing, and I know for us, Spencer and I, something somebody said to us once really kind of, I think, stuck with us, and it was, you can't change culture with a poster, right? Yeah. And if you really think about it, something we've been thinking a lot about is what are the things that can really design culture and influence culture, and a lot of going way I think we're all getting really aware of propaganda and spin and all these things that don't feel real or human. And I guess that's what prompted that question. I guess is it feels like the most direct intervention you can make to really showing value in an employee. Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
It's fast. I think it's really cool what you guys are doing.
Yeah. It is really, really interesting. I'm wondering two different places we can go before we finish off, which is one, I'm wondering, and we might take this out, but which customer base is going to be benefiting the most? And I'm going to jump to a conclusion because some of work we've done with minority groups and minority actually customers, so black-owned small businesses and their employees, for example. The wealth gap is actually one of the biggest challenges in that group, and I wonder whether you've got to the stage of which is that one of your priority actually groups to benefit from your product. That's one avenue, and the other avenue is something to do with your top, which is a lot less important. Your brand, your swag.
Oh, okay.
We'll go there in a minute.
Yeah, we're not. I wouldn't say that we're targeting ethnically or things like that. We're focused on vertical problems, and there are, I would say that there's the broad swath of ethnicities across the people that are that are suffering from these types of pay gaps, right, that we're seeing. But there's certain businesses and verticals that have inherent challenges that have those types of workers in them, and we're focused on solving the problems for those verticals. And I think that it can contribute to helping some of the other things that you've mentioned, but I wouldn't say that that's key to our go-to-market strategy.
Sure. What was your question about the swag?
You want some?
I'm looking. Oh,
yeah,
of course. But now you like streetwear.
I do.
I think you told us. And sneakers, and of course you both actually got really nice pairs of sneakers on right now. I want some credit for this idea if it ever comes to fruition. Okay, an Everee sneaker. Getting paid quicker. Getting paid quicker.
Yeah, let me think about that. Probably not.
Well, but anyway,
I like the idea. If we're gonna produce swag, we'd like it to be something that people would wear. And it's not just for slapping a logo. But you do look damn handsome right now in your hoodie.
Man. Thanks.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing. Very handsome.
It's just goes along with what we're building, and it represents something different than I would say is in our market. We often look at some of the competition in the space and the payroll companies that have been around for decades, and I envision maybe going into their company and might be like going into the DMV or something that's old and not aspirational to go work for, and we just represent something that's way different. So like Barlow mentioned, or Brett mentioned, sorry, Kelly Barlow.
That's all right. It's part of my name.
I hope someday we see people walking around with our swag or a sticker on the back of their car or something like that, and that resonates with what we represent.
Yeah, we want people to be proud to work there, that they mean something to us and that they're helping other people. And if they want to rock the gear, then it certainly wouldn't be required, but we're happy to provide it.
That's great. Well, I think did you have another question before we wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple.
Yeah, go for it.
So I actually want to know, going back to even your backcountry days, I would just be interested to know.
Skullcandy.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I said backcountry.
I do know good people from backcountry, but we were at Skullcandy.
Yeah, anyway, I did a
Same
lot of shopping
lot,
at backcountry
actually.
And at Skullcandy at a certain point in my life.
It's all good.
So Skullcandy, when you guys, were you guys friends at the time and just became really good friends, and did you guys chat about the idea of really kind of going off and building something together, or was it really just required the right time to reach out to each other because you guys were just great friends from Skullcandy?
Yeah, I would say more the latter. We just stayed in touch because we were good friends and we were part of a group that became really close in those Skullcandy days. And I would say more like a brotherhood. We just were very close. Did things outside of work that sometimes you're in a work environment and it's what do you call it? The sitting in the airport. What's the analogy there?
Yeah, I use the airport test. Would I be okay if I had a layover and just got stuck with somebody? Because you don't feel good, you're hungry, you're probably sweaty. Are you okay hanging with that person? And Ron passes the airport test.
Yeah, I mean, there's just,
There's a lot of people from there that do.
Yeah, exactly.
From Skullcandy.
Okay, well, so we've had an hour talking to you guys. Did we pass the airport test?
Absolutely, 100%. Well, you're in the airport with us right now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
I think maybe just to your last question here to Ron, I think that you start to develop an understanding of the people that you trust when you're doing hard things together. And so I don't know that we had an idea hey, man, let's do this thing. We didn't really talk about that. But I always knew that there's a small group of people that if they ever ask something of me, I'm there.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to give you that list of people, but I would imagine they know who they are, and he's one of them.
That's cool. All right, one last question for me then. So as you look forward into the future, what are some of the big questions that you guys are asking each other right now about kind of where you're going and some of the interesting potential problems? Or what are some of the big problems or questions that you are looking at into the next, 2 years, 5 years? I don't know.
Really, to me, it's more just getting known.
Yeah.
It's a big market, and building a company. People might not know what they don't know. So, you'll be helping us in that with your podcast here, and I think that's great. And it's more just doing that because I think we have a fantastic product. It's a great experience, not only for the administrator of the company, but also for the employee. And so, I think it's more just building the brand and getting out there.
Yeah, I think there's an authenticity that I would like for us to maintain as we scale and get bigger.
Sure.
I hope we continue to stay as a business core to our roots of why we started this, and our intention is to grow this to be as big as we can, and it's not for maybe the reasons that you might think to do that. It's the bigger we get, the more people we help.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. The more dollars that we have in the business, the more we invest in the product, the more people we help. So there's a flywheel effect that happens with that. So we want to grow. We want to maintain our authenticity of core to who we are as people, but also why we started the company. And I think good things will happen. Hope they are happening.
We love it.
And then to end it, just don't be an a-hole, right?
Yeah, standard.
Don't be an
That's
a-hole.
yes. If you're gonna set the bar, don't be that.
Is that a written value?
No. No. No, but I put it on a billboard.
It was on a billboard?
Mm-hmm. At Pluralsight.
Nice.
Yeah, it said equal opportunity except for a-holes.
I might remember that. Yeah.
Some people didn't like that. I think my mom actually wrote a letter to the CMO, who was me at the time.
Oh my goodness.
Wondering why would such a great company have such a crass, I think the word, or vulgar maybe, word. Like, Mom, because it's not for you. If you know what it's like to work with an a-hole, you know how bad that can be. And so we're enforcing that here.
All right.
Very good. Well, if anyone wants to contact you, get in touch, have a conversation.
Yeah.
Where can you do that?
Brett's cell phone number.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's our last
How
guest.
about email? Would email suffice? Brett.Barlow at Everee and Ron.Ross at Everee.com. And we really, thanks for thinking of us. Appreciate the invitation. I've really
Great
enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, thanks. Best of luck with this. This is a great idea.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of it. And we'll send you the hype video for the first one. And you'll start to see stuff pretty soon from Kiln or from ourselves.
Okay.
We do 6 member highlights from Kiln every month or every series as well. So we've had 6. We've companies be a part of that.
Great.
Of course, you're actually a guest as well. So we cover that off. Yeah. So great. And if you ever want to talk culture, tell us.
Yeah, awesome.
All right,
our pleasure. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Swell Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you did enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave a review and get involved in the conversation on all the major socials at the Swell Pod. We'll see you next time. Thank you.